Hello, and welcome to the Wade Borth podcast. This is Wade Borth, your wealth strategist. And today we're going to talk about fear and anxiety. I know there's a lot of people out there right now that are going through a lot of fear and anxiety um, because they're fearful of a lot of different things, be it the pandemic, the election, what's going on with their money in the market. All these things are building on people, and it's weighing on people. And as I was thinking about what I should talk about today in our podcast, it just dawned on me that we have to ask the question, why do we have this fear? What's the buildup of fear and what's causing the anxiety in our lives? Because the anxiety in our lives can cause all kinds of issues personally and individually in our health. And one of the things I've heard many times is that the leading cause of death is stress, and stress is a form of fear and anxiety. So let's take a little time to talk about fear and anxiety and really put it in its place, because fear isn't a bad thing as long as, like anything else, is not too much of it. So what I'll talk about today, and I encourage you to visit us on our website at sagewealthstrategy.com to see a little bit more about what I'm talking about and the different principles I'll be talking about here. So as I see fear is one of those things that to me is caused from a lack of control. And if it's in our election, for example, people are fearful one way or the other, no matter how you voted in the election. They're fearful about those things that they can't foresee or envision or really have any control over. They can vote, but then if the vote doesn't go their way or something else happens, it creates this fear of something might happen to them, economically or to this country or whatever it might be. So the big picture is, they have this fear. Where I look at it and say, well, part of me says there's not much I can do about that. I can do my part. I can have my conversations. I can, cast my vote in an election. And what happens, and then it's our job to say, well, that's the outcome, and now we need to take control of our own lives. Go back and say, well, how's this going to affect me, and take control of our own lives, and go back and make adjustments so that we are back in control. One of the big key factors that I talk about on a day-to-day basis is an idea of infinite banking. And one of the main phrases is taking back control of the banking function in your life. So from a financial standpoint, what you're doing is you're removing that fear by taking control of the banking function. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. It's not a quick fix to any problem. Quite frankly, it's a bit more difficult because we're taking control back from somebody else. We're taking control back from the traditional banks or from somebody else that's lending us money, telling that we can do this or can't do that. What I want you to understand is that initially this might even be harder than doing nothing. But at the end of the day, it's taking control. And again, from my perspective, what my belief systems are, what my foundations are, is that I'm a long-term thinker. It's got to be a long-term process. So I try not to let these little things get in my way. And I don't mean little from the sense that they're not significant, but just they're just one measure in today's time. And I'm looking out the next 30, 50, really next 100 years. And so a pandemic is fearful because we have no control over who gets sick and what happens after we get sick, and it's an awful thing. But these have come and gone, and in the long run, they will affect us, but we can't change everything we do in our lives because of that. We have to take control. Now, there's not much you can do about a virus. You're going to get it, but there's some measures you can do by washing your hands and social distancing and other things. But again, that's where the fear of the pandemic comes. But again, if I'm the long-term thinker thinking, well, what's this going to do, and how can I set myself up, or what should I be doing so it can impact me the least amount. Those are the things that I'm wanting to do. So if you want to hear more about just my base principles, and I'll touch on them a little bit, but I go into them deeper in a couple other podcasts. Go to my website, sagewealthstrategy.com. It's a strategy, it's singular, sagewealthstrategy.com, and listen to what my Bullhorn message or what my founding principles are. But again, one of them is think long term. And when you think long term, all these course corrections we have to make because of uncertainty of today takes out a lot of the fear that goes on in people's lives. I also believe that one of my founding principles is to empower others, and that also includes empowering myself. And again, by using a financial strategy, we take out a lot of the financial stress, a lot of financial anxiety or fear in our world, because again, now we're taking over that banking function in our lives. In Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, he talked about 35% of your income goes to somebody else's financing organization. Well, just imagine if you could take control of 35% of your income back and bring that control back into your own house. How powerful is that? But that doesn't mean it's easier. Like I said, quite frankly, that means there's just that much more responsibility. But by having that responsibility and having that control, you're going to mitigate the fear and the anxiety that goes along with it. And again, it's not something that's a get rich quick. It's not anything along that lines, but it teaches us. It's a process of how we think about money, how we can take control of that function, and then live by a certain set of principles that allows us to, stay within our means, and understand that those things that we experience don't automatically become necessities. So it is a thought process about how to think about money. And again, what it does, a byproduct of it is that reduces the unknown or the uncertainty that, are we going to have a financial crisis? I was reading a couple articles today that talked about, are we going to have a crash in the housing market? That's a real big possibility. Why haven't they raised interest rates? There's a lot of fear in the markets right now because they see interest rates not raising or rising, or they see this going on, or whatever the case might be. And I said, well, I chose, from our family's perspective, to unplug from that. And we're unplugged from that in the sense that now we're doing the infinite banking concept, the becoming your own banker concept in our own family. So if someday the bank says, hey, your line of credit's cut off, okay, fine. Well, it doesn't affect me. And so I've taken control of that, and now my fear of that is now gone. Not that I need to eliminate all fear, and again, some fear is not a bad thing. I'm fearful of putting my hand on a hot stove. But again, the more control over it that I have, the less fearful or anxiety that can be generated from it. Another founding principle that we stand on is God has given us this infinite knowledge in all our brains and I always look at it as a garden. We have this garden out here that's got a tremendous amount of potential. We have all our vegetables planted and our fruits or whatever it might be that we plant in our garden. But if we let it get overrun by the weeds, and I call the media, I call all the noise that's out there, the weeds in our life. We have this ultimate potential and this ultimate knowledge that's already in our heads. It's my job to help come and weed that garden, to pull those weeds out so you can grow in your ultimate potential. Because again, it's about empowering you to use those talents to the best of their ability. And once you start seeing that, and once you understand that ability is within us all, and that this path is laid out for us, all we have to do is open our eyes and accept it, and again, grow in our knowledge and understanding of it. We look at it and go, am I fearful of the future, of the unknown? Yeah, that always creeps in, but you're a lot less fearful. You're a lot less likely to have fear make your decisions in your life. Because that's what I see a lot of. I see clients, not so much clients, I see people some in general, that are always reacting to the things that are impacting them versus them making decisions. And then when things happen, they're not happening to them, they're happening around them. And it kind of insulates them a little bit. Again, if there's certain things that happen, that none of us have control over, like you said, a pandemic, is it going to affect us? Yeah. I'm not saying it's not going to affect us, but do I need to be fearful of it? Is it going to destroy me? More than likely not. Because the more control I take, the less fear I have, and the better I have that ability to look out 3, 4, 5, 6 moves down the road, because I'm not making these decisions based on fear or out of this sense of dread that's coming along. I can step back and say, well, if this happens, we have this contingency. If this happens, we have this contingency. You have the ability to think. And I look at it as almost a mission, because my fourth principle that I stand on is this mentoring or intergenerational idea that I want what we're doing today and the ideas that we're talking about and implementing to benefit me and my family, yes, but also that next generation of everybody else that's out there. Think about if we could take those people that are in financial difficulty, and we could teach them the ideas and the concepts of taking control of the environment that you're in. A lot of people want to talk about using a tool. I want a certain candidate, that's my tool. I want a vaccine, that's a tool. I want a certain investment, because that's a tool. But imagine if we said, well, I don't want necessarily a certain tool, but more importantly, I want a different environment. So we change our environment. And then we use those tools to our advantage. So from a bigger sense, what we're doing is we're kind of unplugging from what, again, I have a couple of blogs, a blog and some podcasts talking about conditioned thinking. So again, go to our website, sagewealthstrategy.com, and to hear this and to think about how we've been conditioned to think that this election is this important, or this appointment's this important, or this product is the only product that you're going to ever make wealth in. Well, wealth is a creation in your mind, and it's what you're doing to grow wealth through either education, learning, podcasts, whatever it is. You may be on this podcast because you're learning to expand that as well. And when you change that environment, the things that are going on around you aren't happening to you, they're just going on around you. I think probably that's the biggest takeaway, is that people in fear, again, they make poor decisions, and we see it all the time. Market crashes, people sell at the very bottom. It's the fear selling, and you're at the bottom because all the people that had that much fear are now out, and then the market goes back up. But it's hard because, again, you're not really in control. No matter what you're doing, it doesn't affect the market going down 1,000 points or 2,000 points or whatever the case might be. It doesn't affect the closure of a bunch of banks because they're poorly managed and they got themselves in trouble. There's nothing you're going to do that is going to change that, so you don't have any control. But the results of that are impacting you directly by, can you buy a home, or can you get a line of credit? And when you're dependent on somebody else to either sign that check or to sign that approval process, that creates a tremendous amount of fear. So again, probably the takeaway points are, find ways to change your environment. Find ways to say, I'm not going to participate in this market, or in this marketplace, or in this environment. Let me unplug from that and let me go change my environment. It doesn't happen overnight because it's a thought process that you have to change in your own head. It's not somebody else that can do it for you. We can have discussions about it. You can have a meeting with me and we can, do all these different things and we can talk about it. But it's something that has to be done with you. And again, it's about empowering you to take control of that environment, to change that environment. It's empowering you to take control of the banking function in your life. It's empowering you to grow wealth as you see it versus abdicating it to somebody else. And as soon as you abdicate it to somebody else, then that's when fear sets in, because that person that you gave that control power to now makes a mistake or doesn't move the way you want them to move. it's directly impacting you, and now you're mad at them, and now you're in fear that you're going to run out of money or whatever the case might be. So again, give us a call, schedule a meeting. We'd love to talk to you about this from a holistic approach as well as a financial approach, because again, a lot of what happens in our lives is dependent on our finances. And again, it's about how we think about money, not about rate of return or anything else. It's about how you think about money and how you use it, how you respect it, because it's yours, it's your property. Why don't you use your property better than somebody else would use it? Again, I wrote a blog on my website that talks about, you need to love yourself and your family more than you love Wells Fargo. That's a topic for a different discussion, but if you want to, go onto my website, Sage Wealth Strategy, again with just a Y at the end, singular, .com, sagewealthstrategy.com. Look up, you need to love your family more than you love Wells Fargo. Because I think there's some truth in that when we start looking at what we're doing with our money and how we respect it. And again, we want to give that, I talk to farmers and I talk to business people, and they think automatically they have to give those decisions over to somebody else, where the bank doesn't really want them. The farmers and the business owners kind of force that onto the banks. And they go, okay, we'll take control of it, and then we're going to tell you what you can do with your money. How crazy is that? And then also now they're living in fear because now they don't have the control. So it's just about taking back the control and the function, control the banking function in your life and your business. Thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you soon.